basically going to do the last theme of your study unit. So going to look at differentiation and the application of differentiation. And then from next week we will start doing um, our prep for the exam. And so far I got that you guys are writing on the 26th of October. So that is your prelim date. So let's see. It will normally not change to earlier. So if it change, it will not. They will normally not change it to earlier. So let's see how it goes. But we will definitely then from next week start working out previous assignments, previous exam papers. I've got a pack of questions that we will work through. Okay, tonight, differentiation, and also what is important around the differentiation is nearly also going to look at a few other things. So going to look at how to get to marginal cost, marginal revenue, and marginal profit. So we will definitely get to show you the application of differentiation. Okay, so when we look at the application, the few things that that we will look at. So we're gonna look at and if you guys had any previous subjects like economics or DSC or any of those. So we were first going to look at total cost, which is equal to fixed cost and variable cost. Then from there, we're going to show how to work out marginal cost. So we will basically take the first differentiation of a total cost to get to marginal cost. And then we will show a bit of derivatives and slopes around that, how to work that out. And then basically the same as we got marginal cost from total cost, we will look at total profit, which is total revenue minus total cost. And if we differentiate total profit, we will get to marginal profit. Okay, so we are going to look at basically the application of differentiation. So again, if any of you guys had DSC 1520, that is also in there. So if you're doing DSC 20, later on you will get exposure to this again. So we will also look at three differentiation rules. So the first rule is a constant rule. So any constant, so 5, 6, 7, 10, 100, 10,000, if we differentiate that number, it will be 0. So I will show you that in a few examples. So we will show you that. I'll show you the power rule, how we will use that. And if needed, we will look at the product rule as well. The ones that we use the most is the power rule and the constant rule. So those are the ones that we will use the most, because that is also the one we will use to get to marginal cost and to get to marginal profit. Okay, so the power rule is normally the one that we will use to get to the marginal profit. Okay, so let's get into a few definitions around um, total cost, fixed cost, and variable cost. So you might have had this at some stage in one of your subjects, but look at it, a fixed cost is something that is a constant cost nearly that you know of. So if you in, let's say, your own capacity, have a house to rent or paying a mortgage, that is a fixed cost. So if you run a business and you are renting office space, that is a fixed cost. Um, then nearly think about it again in your personal capacity. If you need to um, pay for your petrol or for traveling or something like that, it's not that every month you pay the same amount. So that will be a bit of a variable cost. The same if you in a business and you need to transport goods or things like that, something like petrol or travel will be a variable cost. Something else that might be a fixed cost or a variable cost is if you look at, again, yourself or in a business, um, something like electricity cost. You don't know from month to month if it will be the same like something like your cell phone bill or things like that. Unless you know exactly you're on contract and you don't pay anything more than that, then it's something different, then it's more a fixed cost. Okay, so a fixed cost is nearly a cost that you know exactly how much you are going to pay, where a variable cost is changing because of how many things you producing. So if you're producing more, the likelihood is that your electricity will go up. If you're producing more, the likelihood that you need to pay more for the products to be shipped is likely to go up. The same for the inverse. If you produce less, the likelihood is that your electricity and other costs will come down. So if we had it as a graph, your fixed cost will be a constant. So it doesn't matter. So if you're renting, it doesn't matter if you're renting, if you your quantity of output is 10 or if it is 20. If you're renting and you pay rent, that will be exactly the same. So if you make 10 chairs a month or 20 chairs, the rent that you're paying will be exactly the same. But it might be that for 10 chairs you pay a certain amount of electricity, but for 20 chairs you might pay more. Okay, so that is nearly where variable cost comes in, is to say those things that you're not 100% sure what the costing will be, that becomes a variable cost. Okay, so that is nearly how we can look at it from a fixed cost, a variable cost, and then your total cost is just the two added to one another. So your total cost will always be your fixed cost plus your variable cost. Okay, so that you might have done in economics as well. Then the definition around marginal cost. Um, so marginal cost is basically the change in total production cost that comes from making or producing one additional unit. So what will it cost you if you have, when you create 10 products? So the marginal cost will then be how much was it to create that extra one to get to 11 products? Okay, so marginal cost is basically what is that cost going to be to increase that product that you're making with one extra unit. So basically how we normally look at it is to say our marginal cost is the change in total cost over the change in quantity. And you nearly always want that change in quantity just to be one extra unit. So if we know what the cost is of 19 units and you want to find out what is that extra cost that it will be to get to 20 units. So that will be our marginal cost that we will then work out. Okay, so that is nearly that increase in one additional product or quantity created. Another way to get to that marginal cost is basically to look at your total cost function and to differentiate that total cost function. So what we will then in actual fact differentiate is that variable cost. So that variable cost that basically tells us how the cost might increase as the unit output increases, or how much that cost will decrease when unit output decreases. So before we go into a bit of more, I just quickly wanted to look at an example. So and they give us the total cost function. They told us total cost is equal to Q2 plus 9Q. Okay, so they can also in examples tell you that you've got a variable cost of a number and you've got a fixed cost of a number, and then first you need to work out what the total cost is. So they could have said, and let's quickly say that they could have said, well, your variable cost, okay, let's not, this is going to be a weird one. So let's rather not try now to get what they wanted out of this one. So the question that they will ask is, you've got a total cost, work out what is the marginal cost. Or they can say, work out what is that marginal cost per one unit of increase. Okay, so they can use those words. So they might also tell you work out the marginal cost for quantity equal to 20 where total cost is equal to. Okay, so we will also do that in this instance. So marginal cost is total cost derivative. So what is the first derivative of a total cost? So what we're going to use, and again, remember QMI, it's open book. You're allowed to use these notes. You're allowed to use your calculator. You're allowed to use your study guide. You're allowed to use previous assignment, exam papers, all of those things. So when I look at this function, what we're going to use is the power rule. Okay, so we're going to use the power rule. So we're going to say, well, that 2 goes in front of a Q, and then the exponent becomes 2 minus 1. And then we sit with the second term. Wherever there's nothing, it actually means that it's q to the power of 1. So 1 times 9 is 9. Q then is 1 minus 1. Okay, so if we just simplify that, it's 2q to the power of 1. So we can just leave it as 2q plus 9q to the power of 0. Okay, but anything, so if we have x to the power of 0, if we have 10 to the power of 0, q to the power of 0, all of that will always equal to 1. Okay, so instead of q to the power of 0, we could have said, well, that is actually times 1. So 9 times 1 will give you 9. 2 times q to the power of 1 will give you the 2q. Okay, so that is how we would have worked out the marginal cost. So what they can add to this question, they could have said, work out the marginal cost, where total cost is equal to q2 plus 9q, and q is equal to 20. Okay, so then what we did is to say, okay, we've worked out marginal cost. Okay, great. That is the marginal cost formula. Then when q is 20, we will replace that 20 in the formula that's left. So it will be then 2 times 20 plus 9. And that will then be our marginal cost. So it might be that they just ask you to work out the formula, or they might say, okay, but hang on, work out the formula plus let's give you a quantity, and you need to then say what is the marginal cost. Okay, so that is a very important thing that you guys need to also remember, is that they might take it a step further to say work it out with a number of quantity. Okay, they might also say to you the marginal cost is 200. What is the quantity? Okay, so they might throw it nearly upside down as well to say, well, you needed to work out this formula. And then they might say, okay, that is actually equal to 200. And what is your Q? Okay, so then it would have been just slightly different to say 2Q is equal to 200 minus 9, which is 191. And then Q would have been equal to 191 divided by 2. Okay, so this is a bit of a strange one that I now did. So that gives us 95.5, which then means that actually, okay, you need to create 96 units because you can't have a half unit. So they could nearly do it for opposite side around as well to say, you've got the total cost function. When marginal cost is equal to 200, work out the quantity at that marginal cost point. Okay, so just nearly look at it from a few different ways where they can, one, just ask you to work out the marginal cost function. They might ask you to work out the marginal cost function with a quantity, or they might say, you got a marginal cost, what is the quantity? Okay, so there are three ways that they can ask this question to you guys. Then another thing that they can do is not to give you a total cost, but they can say what variable cost is and fixed cost is. And then you need to remember, well, to get to total cost, I need to add my variable cost and my fixed cost together. And then from there, I can work out what the next steps are. Okay, I think I have included a question where we first need to work out the total cost. So I will show you that as well. If it's not in here, there's definitely in our pack for the exam prep. Okay, then just the other one that they also referenced is marginal profit. And marginal profit, you can look at it from two ways. So marginal profit is your marginal revenue minus marginal cost. So that is one way to work it out. Or you could have said your total profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. And then if you get your total profit, you can basically say, if I take my first derivative of my total profit, that will be equal to my marginal profit. Okay, so there's a few ways again how you can work out your marginal profit. So they can give you the marginal revenue and marginal cost. And if you subtract the two, you get your marginal profit. Or they can give you total revenue and total cost. And then if you subtract those two, you get your total profit. And then if you take your first derivative of your total profit, you will also get to your marginal profit. So again, there is slight differences get to those answers. Um, and I think why it is important also is that sometimes they give you total revenue and total cost. Sometimes they give you marginal revenue and marginal cost. Um, yeah, so that is a way to look at it as well. So we'll see what examples are here that we can look at. Okay, so marginal revenue and marginal profit. I just included some definitions if again you need it for the exams, then you have it. So again, just remember it is open book. They might ask one or two theory questions. Most of it is non-theory, but just if they have it in the exam, here is a definition again to how to work out marginal revenue, which is basically the first derivative of total revenue, and how to work out marginal profit, which is again first derivative of your total profit. Okay, so I just thought let me again include it for you guys that you have it. Um, again, so what, and you will see that now with your off assignment, which is basically this your mock exam. So that is cameras on. That will be how your exam will also be. So that will be exactly the same platform that you will write QMI in as well. So all that they test or that they monitor is that it is you that's writing, um, and that you are not getting assistance from anybody via somebody sitting with you or via um, any digital format. But else, it is open book. You're allowed to have all your study notes. You are allowed to have all of these notes as well. So you have access and allowed to have access to them. Okay, so then the last thing before we go into a bit of examples is nearly, and let's show the other one first, is to work out the slope. Um, and nearly important is that again, when you guys Google now slope or straight lines or derivatives of a slope, you might get a few different ways that they're writing the straight line. So the normal algebra way of writing it is y is equal to mx plus c, where m is your slope and c is your y cutoff. There might also be that you say y is equal to mx plus b, where that is the intercept, but there's also in some study guides, it might also be y is ax plus b. So just be on the lookout when you Google it and you're looking for alternative ways. Just make sure the the definition of a straight line and the slope might just have a different variable that they're referencing. But the way that you're going to work it out is exactly the same. So just be aware of it. If you Google or if you go on YouTube and you're searching for derivatives of a slope or slope and y-intercept, there might just be a few different ways that they write the formula. Okay, but whatever that variable is that is referencing the slope, how we will work out the slope is by looking at the difference in the two y points divided by the difference in the two x points. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if this was our 2 points, remember that's x and that's y, and that is x and y. So our 2 points will be 5 minus 3, where you can see at the top 5 minus 3, and at the bottom 2 minus 1. So the difference in y is 5 minus 3. The difference in x is 2 minus 1. Okay, so that is how we would work that slope out. Okay, so but look at this formula. So I want to show you something else as well. So we now worked out that slope, that is 2, if you work it out from those points. But look at, so if we look at 2x plus 1, and we say, get the first derivative of that. So let's look at what's the derivative of y. Remember that is 1, so it is 1 times 2, x1 minus 1, plus 1, but remember, plus 1 is a constant. If we differentiate a constant, it will be 0. And then if we look at 2x to the power of 0 plus 0, remember, x to the power of 0, or anything to the power of 0, is equal to 1. So there we have that the derivative of that line is actually the same as the slope. Okay, so that is just something that it might be that at this stage they might ask you to work out the slope, but they might just give you the formula and 1 point, and then you're like, okay, but how do we do this again? So just remember, whenever you need to work out the slope and they have given you a formula, you can actually work out the derivative of that formula as well, to get to the slope. So it might just be that they give you one thing, or just a bit of the information, so that you need to know how to use it in another way as well. Okay, we will look at a few examples in how they ask it, because again they might give you just a formula and say work out the derivative of a formula, or work out, they might say derivative, they might say just simplify. So that can be the one, or they can ask you to work out the marginal cost, or the marginal revenue, or the marginal profit. So that is nearly the two ways that they can ask it. So what I've done is, you will see in some of these, just quickly show that, okay, so how it is written, the derivative is that, and I don't know if we call it a copy, or if we call it like a, but basically fx is f at x. Okay, so that's the first derivative. If we needed to work out a second derivative, it would have been just two of those. And I will just show you, for interest's sake, how to work out the second derivative just in one of the examples. Okay, so when we look at working out the first derivative, remember, so let's say x to the power of 5. The 5 goes in front, so 5x, and then it is 5 minus 1, which will then give you the 5x to the power of 4. Okay, which you can see there. If we needed to work out the second derivative, we just follow the same process. So then we say, okay, well, 4 times 5, it's 20, x 4 minus 1. So then your second derivative would have been 20x to the power of 3. And then if we now really want to, we can go on and say there's another derivative, and we go on until we can't anymore. But that is not, that they will not ask that to you. So basically, I just wanted to show you, if they ask the second derivative, you just do the same process. Take the exponent, do the front, and again, then the exponent minus 1. Okay, so that is for a positive, where that exponent is a positive. Where it's a negative, we follow the same process. We take the negative to the front, so that's minus 4x. And then, as we would have minus 4, and then we just say minus 1. So we don't now suddenly say plus 1 or anything. We keep the process the same. Take the exponent to the front, the exponent minus 1. So that will give us then minus 4 times x minus 4 minus 1, which is minus 4x to the power of minus 5. Okay, so follow exactly the same process, even though it now look a bit different because it's negative, but we follow the same process to show exponent to the front, exponent minus 1. Okay, then another one that is very important to look at is when it is a fraction. Okay, so again, the same process. Fraction to the front, So nothing changes. We had the fraction 2/3. So follow the same process, -1. Okay, but now you can see what they're showing to us is -1 is actually the same to say as -3/3. So they made it simpler to say whatever that fraction is, let's convert the -1 into a fraction so that we can use that again. So 2/3 minus 3/3. So 2 minus 3 is -1. It will be -1/3. Okay, so just showing when we work with a fraction, what the impact will be on the question. Then something a bit different is when we get the square root. So another way to rewrite that square root is square root is actually x to the power of a half. If it was cube, that would have been x to the power of 1/4. If it was, and I want to do this because this is sometimes for me easier to understand how some of these things work. So if I get x to the power of 2 cubic root, I want to show you guys how to sometimes see this a bit simpler. So then how I see it is, how we do it is to say, well, that's 2 divided by 3. And so that is if we needed to now rewrite that as x to a power of. So if we get something like x, and it might be things weird that we have never ever seen before. So something like that. X to the power of 7, but the root of 12. Then that is equal to x7 divided by 12. Okay, so that for me is just sometimes a nice way to look at it. So, sorry, that must not be a quarter. It should be 1/3. So that is just for me sometimes also nice to remember is if we have a function so let's say something like that. We can say, well, okay, that is x 2/4, and then that can again be simplified to x 1/2. Okay, so then if we have x a half and we want to then differentiate, that becomes, that will go in front, a half x, then a half minus 1, which is a half x. And if we wanted to say, let's first simplify the 1, So that is minus 2 over 2, which then is a half x to the power of minus a half. Okay, so again, just showing you how to do that. Okay, so let's look at a few other examples. So just going to do one or two, and then you guys can also look at the others for practice. We'll also look at some of these. Um, I've got in detail some of these to also ask you guys later on. We work it out in our prep as well. But let's look at a few weird ones. So let's first look at this. So got minus x over 2. So they say to us, okay, but simplify that a bit. So that is minus a half x. Okay, so if we need now to differentiate that, remember there's a 1. So if we differentiate it, it will stay a half or minus a half, and then it is x1 minus 1. So x1 minus 1 is equal to minus a half x to the power of 0. X to the power of 0 is 1. So that becomes just minus a half. Okay, so anything the same here with the minus 24x, if you differentiate that, it will follow the same route. It will be minus 24x to the power of 1 minus 1. That will give you minus 24. The 1 in front is a bit different, so 2 will go. So we actually have 2 times 12, which is 24, x 2 minus 1, which is basically x1. And then the differentiation of a constant, remember that is differentiation of a constant is always 0. Okay, so I'm gonna, when I send it on to you guys later tonight on the WhatsApp group, you can look at these others, and if you then struggling with it or want to ask help, please do. Then I will also show you guys how to do that. Okay, so that is when they ask you to differentiate nearly a mathematical equation. So they give you the equation, they ask you to differentiate it. What they can also do is to start talking about total revenue and those kind of things. So let's look at this. So they say a factory has found that the total revenue are from producing and selling X sound systems is given by the total revenue curve or the total revenue function. Then they say, okay, that's total revenue. The cost to produce this is given by the total cost function. Okay, cool. So there you have those two functions. Then they ask, okay, but calculate and interpret the marginal profit when it is 5,000, 7.5, and 8,000. Okay, so let's first work out marginal profit. So I will first say, okay, but how do we get total profit? So total profit is equal to total revenue. The total revenue we have, and total revenue minus total cost. And remember that minus because that might influence our formula. So that would be, okay, not total product, total profit. So I don't know why I said total product, total profit. Okay, so total profit is total revenue minus total cost. Okay, so let's just first simplify this a bit. And I've missed the X there as well. And it is minus times 100 is minus 100x, and minus times positive 200,000 is minus 200,000. Okay, so that is our total profit function. So if we want to get to marginal profit, if we take the total profit and we take the differentiation of that, or the first derivative, we will get to marginal profit. So now, again, we follow the same method. The 2 goes to the front. So 2 times that is minus 0.04x. Exponent 2 minus 1. So that's 1. Here we have 300x. So 400x minus 100x is 300x. When we take the derivative of 300x, it will become 300. And remember, the derivative of a constant is equal to 0. So we actually now have our marginal profit function minus 0.04x plus 300. So then they say, okay, but let's work out what's the marginal profit when we produce 5,000 units. So 5,000 times 0.04 negative plus 300. So when we produce 5,000, our marginal profit is 100. So when we put the 5,000 in the X, our marginal profit will be 100. Okay, so then let's put in 7,500 into X. Then my marginal profit is 0. And if I put in 8,000 into X, my marginal profit becomes negative. Okay, so what we can then say is, so we calculate it and interpret the marginal profit. So we can say, as you start producing more than 7,500 sound systems, you are starting to make a loss. So when you produce 7.5, you will break even. When you produce 8,000, you will make a loss. When you produce 5,000, you will make a profit. So for every additional unit after a certain amount, you will actually start making less and less profit per additional unit. Okay, so the first one was to say 5,000 times minus 0.04. So if you multiply that out, it will be minus 200. Minus 200 plus 300 will give us the 100. Then when you substitute the 5,000 with 7,500, if you multiply that times that, I got, and let's just test it again, I got minus 300. Okay, just check if you use 0.04 and if you use 0.4. So that will make the difference. Just make 100% sure if you're using 0.04 or if you are using 0.4. Cool. Okay, so perfect. Okay. So this question asks a bit different, but in actual fact, what you worked out was your first derivative. So we worked out basically what is that first derivative. They have just asked it in a bit different type of question. So they first wanted you to work out what is the profit. So very important was the first thing was for you to be able to work out the profit. So remember, profit is basically looking at your total revenue minus your total cost. Then you will get total profit. And then if we take the first derivative or differentiate total profit, then we will get the marginal profit. Okay, and then, so what they could have asked you or given you as options in the exam is to give you a few marginal profit equations, and they might have given you just one of the marginal profits to calculate with one quantity. So that you nearly, because again, they can't ask you in your exam where it's multiple choice to interpret. So they can nearly just ask you, work out what is your first derivative or work out the differentiation. Um, and they might have it as, here's your formula, and when Q is equal to 5,000, your marginal profit might be 100 or something like that. But again, they can't ask you to work out what is or interpret, because it's again multiple choice. So if I ask you to interpret, they need to give you four interpretations and you select the correct one, which I've never seen before. So they would rather ask you to differentiate a formula than to interpret something. Okay, so just remember, once again, your exam is exactly the same as your assignment, so multiple choice, and when your exam is in actual fact as your fourth assignment, which is also your mock exam, where you need cameras on. So, but again, it is open book. You're allowed to use any notes. You're allowed to use your study guide. You're allowed to use a calculator. You're allowed to have a notepad that you can work out the problems. I will not expect you to just know it off by heart or anything like that. So you will be able to work it out on a notepad. Um, so yeah, so just again, as is your current assignment 4 that I think was launched today or launched in this week, that is how your exam is going to be. So nearly, it's very important nearly to nearly check that your everything is working, um, when you are now doing your assignment 4. So very important nearly around assignment 4 is actually not really about the context of assignment 4, because what we have seen a lot, what they do is they might replicate some of the previous assignments and put that in assignment 4. But what is more important nearly is that you guys have, when you open it up, it it allows you um, to get access to your camera. So please, that is the most important, that you guys actually check that all the systems are working, because that again is the most important thing for assignment 4, because that is what will be needed in your exams, that the system gets access to your camera, that your camera can be switched on and things like that. Okay, so let's go into the next question. So now they go and say, okay, but a subsidiary of Electronics manufactures programmable pocket calculators. Management determines that the total daily cost to produce these calculators is given by the cost function. Okay, so we have the cost function, where X is the number of calculators. Calculate marginal cost. Okay, so marginal cost So if we have total cost, if we basically take the first derivative of that, we will get marginal cost. So we can basically say, let's work out that first derivative. So the 3 times 0, 1, 2, 3, so that is 3 zeros, and then times 3, x to the power of 2, then 2 goes to the front, so it is 0, 0.08 times 2, that I need to work out. Okay, so that would be then minus 0, 0.16 x2 minus 1 is x1. Then remember there's a 1, so that goes to the front, so it is just plus 40 x1 minus 1, it's x0, x to the power of 0 basically is 1, so we can get rid of that. And then the first derivative, or if we do a differentiation of a constant, that basically becomes 0. And so the first derivative or differentiation of a constant is 0. Okay, so that will be our marginal cost function. So again, they might ask you to work out the marginal cost function, and then they might say, okay, but work out when the quantity is 400. So then all that we do is replace in that formula the x by 400. To work out what is the marginal cost. And when we do that, it's 400 to the power of 2, which gives you 160,000 times 0.0003. So that first component gives me 48. Then the second component, 0.16 times 400, gives me 64. So minus 64 plus 40. So my marginal cost would be 48 minus 64 plus 40 is equal to 24. Okay, so marginal cost function, and then if we are at 400 calculators, the marginal cost will be equal to 24. Okay, so what you also just need to be careful about is one of the options will be if you've put 400 into that formula. So that will be one of your options. So just be very careful. First, work out what your marginal cost function is, and then you substitute the x with the number that they give you. I have seen in exam papers that what they do is one of the options they will nearly have put that 400 into that original and give that as an option as well. So just be very careful, specifically when they ask you to work out the marginal cost by giving you that Q or giving you that X, that is what they will normally do. Okay, then here's something a bit different. So the cost function of a factory that manufactures boxes of nougat bars is given by, so that's the cost function, where X is the number of boxes of nougat bars produced. The factory cannot produce more than 2,000 boxes of nougat bars per day. Calculate the first derivative of 100, the first derivative of 500, and the first derivative when X is 1,000. Okay, this is a bit a weird one. So when they can't ask you in assignments or exams to interpret, but let's just quickly look at what we do. So that's the cost function. Let's get the first derivative or differentiate that. So 500 is a constant. So if we derive that constant, it's 0. But look now at the second one. So 5x, remember that's a 1. So 1 times 5 is 5. X becomes 1 minus 1. So that is 0. So the 0 can fall away. So what we left with is 5x to the power of 0, which is actually just 5. So it actually doesn't matter if we produced 100, 500, or 1,000. Our total cost or marginal cost will stay at 5. So what that tells us is let the factory make 2,000, because it doesn't matter if we producing 100, 500, 1,000, or 2,000, our marginal cost will stay at 5 Rand. Okay, so it is not impacted by how many we produce. Okay, so this is really not something that we will ever see in industry. But with this one now, basically what they wanted us to interpret is to say, well, it doesn't matter if you produce 100, 500, 1,000, or 2,000 boxes, your marginal cost will stay 5 Rand. So basically meaning go up until 2,000, produce, and your only cost will be increased by 5 Rand and nothing more. Okay, so it will cost you to make 100 or to make 2,000, it will just cost you 5 Rand more. So really go then and make as much as you're allowed to, because your cost will only go up with 5 Rand. Okay, so not really a practical example, so more a theoretical example to ask, what do you see? I really don't think this will ever happen in practice, that it doesn't matter how many you produce, you actually don't increase cost. Yeah, just can't see that. Okay, so that is application of differentiation. So that is the last theme that we were looking at. So when we start now with your exam prep next week, what I will do is we will be going through a lot of examples of a mixture of these things. So I have some slides that is from previous exam papers, from previous assignments. If you guys have any assignments that you had questions on that we need to work through, send that through to me. I will build it into the presentations. If you now go through assignment 4, rather not take pictures of assignment 4 because it is prep for the exam. So I probably will not do anything, but rather not. Yeah, but if you have any of the previous assignments, please send me those questions through. I see a hand.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Yeah, it's Kanye here. So I wanted to ask if you perhaps do you have access to semester one's exam also, if perhaps we could touch on like just drip and drop some of the questions also there.
Yeah, I know I didn't have access to semester 1 exam, but what I used for the prep for last semester was they they normally put on your My UNISA portal some access to previous exam papers. Um, so again, if you have some of those that you can share with me, but I do have a lot of last semester's assignment questions that we will definitely go through, and I will make sure that by next week I'll share that whole pack of, and I think it's over 100 questions that I have, um, that I will share with you guys that you can use for prep as well. Um, so I will work through those questions that we get to the answers, but I will definitely share that pack as well. Um, because what I've seen in QMI and BNU, there's a lot of previous exams that are being reused by the lecturers. So again, share any of your assignments or any of that previous exam papers that might be on your portal, and I will put all of that also in extra slides that we can work through. But yeah, I already also have some others, so I have a nice pack that we will start working through from next week, and that we can just. The QMI for me is a lot like BNU and DSC. With the more you see some of the questions, the more exercise you get. There is just so much that they can ask. Then it is basically the same questions with different numbers and those kind of things. Um, so we will definitely make sure that you get enough practice in. Also on, I think, the mathematics of finance. I think there's also a few things that we will just go over and over again. And also once again show how to use the formula page, how to use the calculator, how to use Excel. I will in this week post the formula page that I've created. I will post that on our WhatsApp group. So I will do that. So I just want to scan it in that it is a PDF instead of a photo. Then I will share that in the middle of the week with you, so that you have that already, and have access to that, so that if you also want to use it in the exam, you can maybe get it printed or something like that. But it's just, again, easier for you to get access to it. Um, and I have made notes on it, so when I share it with you guys, you will see that where there is a formula, I've written down what that formula actually means. That you still don't need to guess; it is there. Um, okay, wait. Let me quickly. Sorry, yeah, I haven't added the link to the WhatsApp group, so let's quickly do it. Link to the WhatsApp group is on the chat. If you click on that link and it's not working, send me a WhatsApp on 0837908387. Then I will add you to the group. So if that link is not working, just send me a WhatsApp on 0837908387. I will add you to the group tonight, and after that, I will share the recording and the presentation and all those kind of things with you guys. Okay, so that's it for tonight, everyone. Good luck with assignment 4, but the most important thing about assignment 4, again, make sure that when it asks you to access your camera and those kind of things, that works. So that's the most important, because your exam is going to use exactly the same platform, so that you don't get in trouble with the exam testing it. So assignment 4, the most important thing is actually to make sure that it can get access to your camera, that is working. A lot of time, assignment 4 is nearly a repeat of some of your previous assignment questions, and that it is just a very good prep to see that all your, if you do it via a laptop or via a cell phone, that it get access to your settings, your camera, all those kind of things, especially if you guys are also using a work laptop or things like that. Just then get assistance that it gets access to your camera and change those settings. That's the most important thing to test with assignment 4, is that it picks you up and it doesn't flag you, so that you know that when you're ready to write the exam the same way. Okay, have a great evening, everyone. Um I will share the recording. I will share the presentation.